We are recording this the day after game one of the Nuggets and Lakers game. Tonight is game one of the Eastern Conference Finals featuring Boston and Miami. Don't want to talk about that game. I actually want to talk about last night. Just a fantastic basketball game that we got to see. Obviously, Nuggets jumping out to a big lead early, some adjustments from the Lakers. Any takeaways that you had from the game and watching it?
Well, I thought you talked about this last night a little bit. The second half, the Lakers' second half adjustment defensively feels like the story of the series, and whatever Mike Malone does in game two to counter that, which we will see, just feels like that is. But it does say, when we were talking about the preview before, it's a Davis Joker back and forth, and whoever between the two of them and whichever coach can sort of win the adjustment battle there, it feels like is going to come out ahead. The one other thing I wanted to ask you, and I think this probably ties into, some of the conversation we're about to have, is just Davis offensively. Obviously 40 last night. His offensive rating right now is 116 in the playoffs, was 114 in the regular season. When he's been healthy, he's been a great player since he's been in the NBA. But is there a part of you that is not surprised at all, but just like overly impressed with how good he's been offensively? We know how good he is defensively.
I wouldn't say overly impressed. There's different versions of Anthony Davis scoring to me. There's the ISO version where the Lakers really emphasize getting the ball to him, particularly on the left side in that 12 to 15 foot area. Some at the top of the key, as we saw last night against Jokic, but that's kind of his bread and butter, having played against him. He likes that left side. So there's that part of it. There's the offensive rebounding part of it. And then I thought last night in particular, it was a lot of just feel. He scored a lot in that short roll, pocket, short jumpers, floaters. There was a play late in the game where somebody dribbled, penetrated, and he kind of veered off behind the defender at the rim, got a bounce pass, shot a little floater. Like he's never been a great jump shooter outside of the bubble, but I just love his feel for the game. He's a smart player, credible defensive player. Again, we've always felt like, I've always felt like Anthony Davis is a top 10 talent, and some of it is availability and the injury issues. Some of it is fit at times. Some of it is motivation. I know it's hard to sort of carry that mantle when you're on a struggling team like he was at times in New Orleans. But in terms of the talent, no, I'm not surprised. The guy's a bucket. And he showed that last night. One thing last night, in just kind of going through the game today, because I was on Get Up for 2 hours and then First Take for 2 hours. I think as much as this game was about the stars, as much as it was about Murray and Jokic and Anthony Davis and LeBron, got to give some props to the role players. Michael Porter Jr., I thought, had a solid game. KCP hit big buckets in the second half. Austin Reeves was great. Roy Hachimura was great.
Reeves is going to get a bag.
Well, somebody's going to, the most any team can offer is 4 for 80, and somebody's going to offer that. And then the Lakers will have to make a decision about whether they want to match, but he deservedly so. I see these weird things where they're like, how is he going to get $20 million a year? Is he a top 15, top 20 shooting guard? It's like, dude, how many good shooting guards are there? Number one. And number two, the players' salaries is just going through the roof. $20 million is not what it was 10 years ago. I get there's some sticker shock there, but the guy's worth $20 million
just
a year.
Just watch the playoffs. Just watch him play, and you could understand it. I totally agree. I think my question, we've talked about this with Denver all year, is the depth. First it was sort of the big man depth, but overall, Bruce Brown was obviously great.
I should have mentioned Bruce, of course. Yes,
but their bench minutes, they were getting, even in the first half when they were shooting lights out, they were getting hurt when their starters were not out there, and so that does feel like a question mark. Is like who they probably need one other guy on that bench to step up.
Yeah, I mean they've been pretty tight on that 8-man rotation in the playoffs, playing Aaron Gordon as the backup 5, and early, I know I didn't quite pay as much attention on the rotations in the second half. Obviously, I was looking at matchups. We'll talk about the Hachimura adjustment in a second. But I know early when Jokic was out, Anthony Davis was out. Jokic came back in. Anthony Davis immediately subbed in. LeBron can win those minutes by himself because he's LeBron. It's interesting. I bemoaned and we've mentioned this on the podcast, but I've bemoaned for 2 years just a horrible roster construction of the Lakers. And I've talked all season about the Celtics having such a complete roster. I've talked recently about the Nuggets having such a complete roster. And the Lakers are sitting here. They have a great roster. They have a bunch of really good basketball players, and it gives them some optionality. Speaking of optionality, the decision to switch Hachimura onto Jokic, Nuggets were 2 for 10 as a team with Hachimura guarding Jokic. I may have mentioned this on our live last night. I think you got to move Aaron Gordon out of the fucking dunker spot. I hate the dunker spot. Get him on the wing. Sixers Twitter knows this. Having whether he's a shooter or non-shooter, it doesn't matter to me. Having him in space where he can be a free screener on their shooters or go into dribble handoffs on their shooters, and then all of a sudden Anthony Davis has a longer recovery to Michael Porter Jr. coming off a dribble handoff, Jamal Murray, KCP, whoever it may be. I think that's where you got to get him out of the way and force Anthony Davis a little bit to play the cat and mouse game in terms of the defensive 3 seconds, and then force him to make some tough decisions. And the other point I want to make, if I'm Michael Malone, I'm telling Aaron Gordon, dude, I'm cool with you shooting 6. You make 0, I'm cool with, like, it's on me. I want you to shoot 6 threes.
Just so
if
they're
going to,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I had one question.
Yeah.
I don't remember where you talked about this last night, but this was a big topic of conversation during the game. I think before the game and definitely during the game. Is the altitude thing a factor at all?
Yeah, I heard a lot about this on the broadcast last night because they kind of closed the pregame show with this. So I always felt, I've never played Denver in the playoffs, but I always felt coming into Denver, whether it was a back-to-back or you had the day before, the first run in the first quarter and the first run, meaning the first 5-6 minutes, right? Until there's really like a longer dead ball. The first run in the first quarter, first run in the third quarter, always a little tough, but within the game, outside of those minutes, I never really paid much attention to it. And we keep bringing up last night. I'll say we'll be doing these YouTube lives for Islands in the League. Our friends at DraftKings, obviously, our presenting sponsor on Islands in the League. We'll be doing YouTube lives after 8 or 9 of the conference finals and finals games. So we had a 15-minute one done last night. We'll let you guys know on Twitter and on social when the next one is, but it will be relatively soon in these conference finals. Tommy, I said on First Take and Get Up today, and I mean this, Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player in the world right now, and got me curious about finals MVP odds right now. So right now, as I think we talked about earlier, Celtics at plus 100, Nuggets at plus 180. Those are the current NBA finals odds. So they're the 2 favorites. And if you look at the finals MVP odds, the 2 favorites, naturally, Jason Tatum at plus 130, Nikola Jokic at plus 185. Then you've got Jaylen Brown, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler, Jamal Murray. That kind of rounds it out of people that I think realistically could potentially be the MVP of the NBA finals. It's interesting. They have two of the top 3 are Celtics guys.
Yeah, I think that Davis number looks pretty. Looks promising.
Looks really interesting.
Yeah, really. I was thinking about this when we were talking about this as a topic today. It was Iggy the last sort of non-superstar to win Finals MVP in 2015.
Yeah, he had to have been. Yeah.
So, I mean, is somebody like Jamal? Would he be in that category?
Different. It's really different because Iggy, and I'm not saying Iguodala didn't deserve the praise. I still think Steph, I've said this for years, I still think Steph should have won in 2015. That's not to take anything away from Iguodala, but I think a lot of that was, LeBron had crazy numbers. LeBron shot 39%. They inserted Iguodala in the starting lineup. That kind of changed the makeup of that series a little bit. I don't even remember the exact 15 points, 16 points. Whereas with Murray, if he's a finals MVP, he's probably getting you 28 to 32 points a game.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of difference there. A lot of adjustments to be made in this series. The other point I wanted to make, and this is just not an adjustment thing, this was just my observation of the game itself. And Michael Malone touched on this after the game in his presser. He talked about the transition offense not being as good in the second half. They obviously want to push the pace a little bit. I think the Lakers offense helped their defense, right? The first half, it was some weird passes, the KCP interception at half court that led to a bucket, LeBron throwing an outlet lob to half court that was intercepted very easily. That turned into opportunities. And then every time Jokic got a missed shot, he pushes the ball. He throws ahead to Aaron Gordon. He throws ahead to Jamal. So I think that's a cognizant thing the Lakers have to be aware of. Is it isn't just about getting back. It's just about running good offense where people are in a good spot to get back and not creating as many of these opportunities that the Nuggets had in that first half last night. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 and over in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.